Welcome. This is the Ag Engineering Podcast, where we talk tools, tips, and techniques to improve the sustainability of your farm. I am your host, Andy Chamberlain from the University of Vermont Extension, and this podcast is supported by Northeast SARE, providing grants and education to advance innovation in sustainable agriculture. We are trying to improve the industry by chatting with farmers and getting their input on tools, tips, or techniques that have changed the way they farm for good. Many of these practices affect multiple areas of the farm. Whether it be environmentally, emotionally, physically, or financially, we share the knowledge to promote sustainable agriculture, lifestyle, and business. Thanks for having a listen. Now, let's get started. Today's episode comes from southwestern Pennsylvania, where we meet with a vendor, importer, and manufacturer of vegetable farm equipment. Dave started out a farmer and transitioned into selling vegetable equipment when he found out that his local ag equipment dealers didn't offer what he needed. From seeders and transplanters, cultivators, or harvesters, he can tell you the ins and outs of what works well or what doesn't. Today I share with you an excerpt from our conversation talking about the Wizard vacuum seeder, a walk-behind unit built for precision seeding on a less than tractor-sized farm. During this visit, I snapped both photos and videos. You can see these displayed in the show notes at agengpodcast.com. That's agengpodcast.com. So with that intro, here's Dave talking about vacuum seeding.
Hi, this is Dave, one of the owners of Market Farm Implement, and we started our business in the late 80s. In addition to farming. It's kind of how we got into the business because it was very difficult to find small-scale vegetable crop machinery. Matermac came out with a walk-behind vacuum seeder.
Wow, I've never seen that.
No, it's Ralph can't add anything to our website. All he can do is adjust prices, and he can do some text on the homepage.
Yeah.
And our friend Danny, he did our website in 2002, so, you know, from 2002 to now, that's like light years. But Danny's had health issues, so we just haven't bugged him, and there's not a lot new. I mean, now we're coming across, we have a new 3-point hitch green bean harvester that we brought in last year. That went to Long Island. And we have a new salad mix harvester that's electric, self-propelled, you walk behind. And we brought that in last year. That went to California. That's the Bean Pickers Fontana. Ralph he hadn't been to the Bologna show in Italy for quite a while, but...
Is that a big one?
Yeah, you see pretty much everything there. You know, stops at Speto and Matermac booths and Shelley Spaders and Moschio tillers, because we've known these people a long time. But yeah, so Matermac came up with this, and then they sort of branched into a company called Wizard. The same machine, just a different color. That one in the box there is still Matermac red.
Huh.
That's the only red one I have left.
Do they make other walk-behind stuff too, or just the seeder?
Just the seeder, and then in the last 2 or 3 years, they have a 3-point hitch. So this is a little less expensive version of the Matermac. So instead of having a gas engine on it for the walk-behind, it has a PTO-driven fan. It has this same wheel, front and rear. The chassis looks kind of the same. The drive is independent. Rather than a central transmission that one gearbox changes all the rows, you have a gearbox on each row unit. Mm-hmm. This cover just pops off. It's a little interesting how they snapped it to these bolts. Oh. You kind of have to. And then you have wing nuts. You loosen your chain tensioner. You have spare sprockets up here. And the rear wheel is driving your seed disc. Okay. It's also packing, but it's turning your seed seed disc in the metering unit. You have a little seed hopper.
So do you have to put much down pressure on it, or is it?
Not really.
It's pretty balanced.
I've not talked to a lot of people that have used it. but I haven't really had complaints.
How expensive is one of
This
these?
unit I think is around 2,400.
Okay.
Ralph does all the pricing, so sometimes I'm not up to date on things, but typically when he faxes me an order, and then I sometimes pay attention. Okay, yeah, that didn't change. So when you adjust this, that engages the drive wheels, and when you pull that, it locks them in and powers on both wheels. And so I was glad, when we first got this in, to see that they used a Briggs & Stratton engine, American. And I thought, if it's got an Italian engine on it, it's like BCS. When BCS came over in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, they had Italian Acme engines on them. I thought, of all names, Acme. That's like what the Roadrunner, Acme, whatever, this, and it would fail, and he'd go off a cliff or whatever. And so I thought, boy, you couldn't have picked a worse name.
BCS is going off the cliff.
for a motor. You're trying to introduce a new machine to the U.S. market. And it's like, but pretty quick they switched over to some Kohler. Now, of course, most everything's Honda. I thought that's not going to fly too well in the U.S. And then, in doing a lot of trade shows, my brother made up this little display for Matermac vacuums.
Oh, nice.
And so he had a muffler shop make this little pipe thing. We have a shop vac in here to provide the vacuum.
Yeah.
Normally on the planter, you have a hose going from the row unit to the vacuum fan. And then, has a little, I think actually it's a 12-volt motor, so he has a car battery charger that of course converts 110 to 12 volt, and that's what powers that motor. And so he wanted to be able to show how this little sawtooth thing, that's your singulator, and you can move that away from the holes, over the holes. And there's a scale with numbers on this side, and so if you would leave that backed off too much, you would get doubles and triples. And then to show how forgiving vacuum, now, there are different size holes depending on the crop, but we just picked a selection of seed that's rather large.
Yeah.
Sweet corn, popcorn, field corn, pumpkins, some different beans, maybe some peas. And so, it's kind of fun to show at the show how forgiving vacuum is. So we'll power this up here once. And what people don't understand about vacuum, and you do this, they get it.
Oh yeah.
And I've actually had people say, before I show them that, they're like, is that magnetic? I'm like, there's no metal in seeds that I know of. It's vacuum, like your vacuum cleaner. And then you do that, and I get it. But until you show them that, if they're not familiar with the system, and so, I love to show a pumpkin seed because that shows you that vacuum doesn't care about the shape of the seed.
Yep.
If you look at plate planters and plateless, it's good to have a uniform seed.
Right.
So I like to, and so if I leave it backed off, you'll start getting doubles. So you lower that down till it's just kind of cutting the hole almost in half.
Oh yeah.
About number 4 is a good point. And so you'll see that it knocks. There I have a double, I might go one click lower. So your vacuum picks up at 7 o'clock. Say between 9 and 11, passes the singulator. 12 o'clock, you're singulated. 3 o'clock, the vacuum cuts off. It lets the seed fall down the tube.
Oh yeah. So what planter is this unit off of?
It's the Matermac. Same as that. That's the same meter.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Now we'll have 2 of these running side by side.
Yeah.
This is in the other one.
Oh yeah, that's real fine.
Cabbage seed. and people will say, oh, the other one isn't working. And it's going along like this, but they can't see it.
Oh.
So I say, oh yeah, it's working. I come over and stick my hand under it, and then they have to look.
Even if you're digging around in the dirt, you can't find it. Oh yeah, those are tiny holes.
That's 0.8 millimeter, and this is 180 holes. So this is for planting really close.
Wow.
And I have two smaller than this. I have 0.6s and 0.5s. So your herbs and flowers.
Yeah.
I mean, some of that stuff's like specks of dust. It'll simulate it.
Wow. Do you have to back the vacuum off a lot for that, or no? Because it just
you are controlling your vacuum with your throttle, and so there is a interplay between those two. That's true. I did have a guy one time with small seeds called, and he said, you know, I'm getting doubles all the time. And I said, well, what do you have your singulator set at? Because usually it's around number 4. And he says, oh, I have it down all the way at 1. And I'm like, you're not knocking every seed off the disc? What do you have your throttle at? Well, I've got it wide open. I said, back your throttle down to about 1,1300 RPM, set it back at 4, and start there. You've got so much vacuum. It's just sucking the seeds around these teeth. And I said, yeah, there's a relationship there. So yeah, that corrected his problem. But yeah, when he said, oh, I've got it wide open, I was like, holy, no wonder you're not singulating. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you go ahead and subscribe, share this with a friend, or leave us a comment. And if you want more information, check out the show notes on our website at agengpodcast.com. That's agengpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day.
The proceeding has been a production of University of Vermont Extension. For more information on Extension, log on to www.uvm.edu/extension.